called. And
Yes, got started early, girl. Thank you. Yeah.
That's our, any progress with,
Years, but you weren't there yet, so I probably couldn't tell you this, but between like 14 and 18, it's like the.
we talked to.
There's just some rough here, so I'm still in the dark ages connecting with one. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Can we get it on, hold it? Hold it. I'm gonna see if I can throw my audio to the TV set. Can you speak again, Scott?
I can speak again. And I didn't just say that 3 times.
Oh, hold it, just a second. No. Okay, give me another test.
Testing.
And again,
Testing.
kill that. I'll get it. We're just getting a.
Kevin, this survey stuff, how many potential surveyors would there have been? You have 337 answers. Would 300 and. Is that
I think it'll play through here.
50%?
We have population of like 1,000. So 18,000. 1,800 times 2, so 36, 3,062.
No, we have about 700 homes.
No, we have 902 homes,
900
and
times
our population is like 1,800. So yeah, 18, you can get it like that.
Okay.
No.
Testing.
All right. Can you say something again, Scott?
Testing.
Darn it. It is. It should be coming through there, but it's not.
Can you not hear me? Do you want me just to call in on somebody's cell phone?
No, I've got you coming in here. Okay. It's just a little weird. I think, I mean, we're all close enough that we can hear. So we need to just call the meeting to order and.
Okay.
So today is March 21st. We're calling the meeting to order. At
10:08. All right, so I will, if I may, we have the minutes, then real quick reports, and then we'll go straight to Scott.
Okay. So the minutes are on. Do you have minutes?
The packet wasn't online. No, it wasn't. Go to the website. It's not. So
Can't we jump to start first?
we can,
I think out of courtesy.
just out of courtesy, we can do that.
Okay. We need to move to do that, or can we just do that?
I think you can just do
Okay, let's do a roll call. Starting with chairperson, Ann Tyler Conradi, present. Co-chair Thomas Palmer.
Present.
Member Lindsay Hasty, present. Member Sherry Maybe. Member Dan Ross, member Mike Winter.
Oh,
Wait, I thought she was.
is there Bruno on it?
Aurora LeBron.
He's on the committee, right? Yeah.
She kind of resigned. I asked her to everything, but we haven't heard anything back from her.
You like to say this? Okay.
We don't have any public comments, so, let's move to, yeah, let's hold the two reports. And then next, we're gonna take.
Okay, so we'll go straight to Scott. So we're really happy that Scott Joslove could come and join us this morning. They kind of literally wrote the book on hotel occupancy tax in Texas. So he's agreed to just sort of, say a few words and then maybe take some questions if anybody has any. So we'll turn it over to you, Scott. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Let me start out with a note of congratulations. I know that your staff has been working hard on developing an impact formula to look at how your community is doing in terms of hotel occupancy and how that can be measured. And I took a look at your formula, and it's a great assessment tool that'll help you in really understanding when you're doing well and when you may need to augment what you're working on. So I think in terms of research and analysis, you guys are ahead of the curve, and I think that's a great tool that you're using. So I wanted to congratulate you on that and appreciated the opportunity to take a look at that formula. And it'll probably be something that other communities will be borrowing and wanting to use as well. So congratulations on your work there. I've been asked to talk about two things. One, I've been asked to talk about, to give a brief legislative update. And then second, to talk about the benefits that y'all have as being a group member of THLA. And let me start out with the legislative update. We're exactly halfway through the legislative session. There have been over 8,000 pieces of legislation that have been filed. We're following about 500 specific bills that have a very strong impact on the lodging and tourism industry. To give you an idea, there are I think over 48 bills that directly impact hotel tax. I mean, that's a record. Usually we have maybe 10 to 12 hotel tax bills. This session, we have over 48 bills that impact hotel tax. Now, when you think of hotel tax, probably the most important bill that we have is the state hotel tax to fund tourism promotion. And that's part of the state budget. We have by statute a dedicated 1/12 portion of the 6% state hotel tax. So 0.5% out of that 6%, 1/12 portion is dedicated and can only be used by the legislature for promoting Texas as a tourism destination to out-of-state travelers. Y'all are a major beneficiary because a lot of our state travelers want to come to the coast. They want to come see the culture. Oh, no sneaking out of the room. Get back in your chair. I'm watching your every move. No, that 1/12 portion would amount to about $134 million over what we call the biennium, the 2-year period for the state budget. Our legislature only meets every other year, so they do a 2-year state budget. That $134 million should be what we are budgeted for in the state appropriations bill, SB1 and HB1. Unfortunately, we only have about half of that amount right now. So and this is not atypical. It seems almost every legislative session, they undercut us in the budget. They hold the governor's office hostage till late in the session. Finally, we get the full funding for tourism, and we have every legislative session, but we have to fight for it. So we have started that fight already of alerting the Appropriations Committee and Senate Finance that they have undercut us. And what they did is they just appropriated the amount they estimated for last year, as opposed to the full amount that we anticipate in the budget for this year. So it shorts us by about $70 million for the 2-year period. I'm confident by the end of the session, we'll have a full appropriation of $134 million, but that's part of the work that we'll be doing. So our job number one is to double the amount of tourism funding to get the full appropriation to promote Texas as the destination. Any questions about the state tourism budget?
Good to know.
Yeah, it is good to know. It is very good to know. And if we need y'all to start making calls to your delegation, we absolutely can, but we reserve that till we really need it. The second bill that I would talk about, or legislative enactment, is Texas Hotel Association is offering a major hotel tax clarification and transparency bill. And what that bill does is there's a couple of definitions in the law or wording terms in the law that are not clear. And we always feel like it's fair to the city and fair to the tourism industry that we define them, so we find definitions that make sense and aren't likely to be abused. So to give you an example, throughout the hotel tax chapter for local hotel tax, there are references to multi-purpose event centers. But what's a multi-purpose event center? That could be a county courthouse, that could be a city hall, that could be a senior citizen event center, that could be a public library. I mean, there's no real definition of what is a multi-purpose event center. So we defined it as a facility that's primarily used to host events that increase hotel and tourism activity. Why did we define it that way? Because your funding with hotel tax it should have some relationship to tourism and hotel activity. Same thing with visitor centers. We have one community in particular in Texas that wants to define all their park facilities as visitor centers in order to use hotel tax to fund the park facilities. And so we changed the definition of a park facility, of a visitor center, to be a facility that is primarily used for distribution of visitor material. So if that's not its primary use, it wouldn't be eligible. Excuse me. Finally, what the bill does, and I would probably say it's the most important part of the bill, is currently all cities are required to submit a report each year to the state comptroller indicating how they use the hotel tax. There are 9 categories. The current laws, you have to talk about, I think, 4 out of the 9 categories. You have to report on how the city spends, what amount and what percentage on 4 out of those 9 categories. Well, we thought, why would they not report on all 9 categories and also report if they have a surplus? And so we amended the law for both cities and counties to give some money to the city and county for filling out this report, kind of an incentive. And second, to ask them to report the amount and the percentage under each of the 9 categories. It shouldn't take more than 10 minutes for a city to do that. Just look at their budget and say, for convention centers, we spent $1 million, which is 10%. For advertising, we spent $2 million, which is 20%. For arts, we spent $500,000, which is 15%, whatever it is. And so by having this information at the state and getting an incentive, we think we'll go from there about, I would say about 30% of the cities now comply with that reporting requirement. We're thinking with the incentive, we should go to, 80, 90, maybe hopefully even 100% of the cities that have a tax will report. And what we can do with that information is you can benchmark Rockport to Port Aransas and Corpus Christi and Galveston and other communities by looking at their reports and say, hey, for other coastal communities, I'm going to pull up their report and see how much they're spending and what percentage of the total tax they're spending for each of these purposes, and how does that compare to what we're doing. We can do it by size of city, we can do it by location, we can do it by the type of tourism activity you typically generate. And I think it'll be really helpful in benchmarking what you're doing compared to others. It also will report on the amount of reserve funds. So we'll know if there are communities that maybe don't know what to do with their hotel tax, and we can zero in to try to help them to say, hey, how about doing some more billboards? How about doing some more marketing? How about investing in a tourism facility that would be meaningful? And so that'll tell us that a lot. I mean, I can't tell you how many communities I know of that have 4 or 5 million in reserve that they haven't spent yet, and they're just not even sure what to do with the money. So that's the hotel tax transparency and clarification bill. Any questions about that? Yes.
So we had a hot tax. Oops, sorry. That was not tracked in the past, do you believe that hot funds and expenditures must first and foremost meet that two-step test requiring the 9 items? In a previous meeting, we were told that it's not required to track if we put heads in beds or attracting tourism from over 51 miles away. And can you also, in the second part of that question, tell me how that reporting goes and if that's one of the 4 of the 9 categories that they currently report on?
Excuse me. All right, the 2-part test very much still exists. It means you need to fit any expenditure within one of the 9 categories. And those 9 categories are convention centers, registration and convention delegates, advertising and promotion, promotion of the arts, historical restoration and preservation, sporting related events, sporting related facilities, tourism related signage, and shuttles between area hotels and tourism attractions. And so those are the only categories. And then the second part of the test is every expenditure must directly promote tourism and the hotel and convention industry. That means you need to show that you have some sort of impact on lodging. That may be on short-term rentals, it may be on traditional lodging, it may be if you have a full-service hotel, maybe renting a meeting space or catering a meal or an event at a hotel or, or a short-term rental. But there's got to be some sort of direct impact in order for the expenditure to be eligible. Does that help?
It does, and with that, I understand that the expenditure has to affect lodging, but may that go through a private facility regarding maybe a sporting event or an arts event? Can that be held at a private property to help tourism at another private hotel? So say it's a golf course that's private.
Yes, it could be at a public facility, it could be at a private facility. It doesn't really matter where you hold the event as long as it's in the city or its vicinity, as long as it affects lodging within your community. So let's say that you had somebody who's staying at a short-term rental or at a traditional lodging establishment. They may not have come to Rockport to attend an arts event, but if it's one of the things they do while they're staying in that lodging facility, I would argue that that makes that expenditure potentially eligible, because it's one of the things that folks in lodging properties are doing. So that's why it's important. It may not be the majority of their part. Yes, go right ahead.
I'm sorry. One quick point. We're actually Wood Creek, not Rockport. So we're like Central Texas.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I have another seminar for Rockport, and I apologize. Let me recalibrate for a minute. So a Rockport hotel activity is not your concern. So I apologize.
The information is so good.
All right. So
how one would track and how you're verifying that these tourists came from 51 miles away or more. So is that up to the city to do? Is that up to the hotels to provide the city? Or is that just kind of a generalization? We think it impacted us. There's no real data here. And how do we support that and how the city reports to for their hot tax?
All right. First of all, a definition of a tourist is a person from another city or another county who comes, to directly impact tourism, coming to your city and the hotel and convention industry. So it's not enough that they simply visit Wood Creek, and it's Wood Creek, correct?
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
All right. I want to make sure I'm not making a second mistake. That they visit Wood Creek, and they should hopefully be having some type of impact on hotel activity, whether it's a short-term rental, a traditional lodging, or any other property. There's not a definition currently that a tourist has to be over 50 miles away. In our hotel tax bill, we started to redefine tourists as somebody who's 50 miles away, because that's typically what researchers use. But we got some objections from the arts community that would feel punitive to them because it's a new definition. And so we took that out of the general definition of tourist, but you still have to have some sort of impact on lodging and tourism activity within the city. So no matter what you fund of those 9 categories, you want to make sure that you're capable of having an impact. It may not be the reason they came to the community, but if it's one of the things they do while they're there. You know, I always give the example of the city of Lubbock and the Buddy Holly Center. A lot of people have been to the Buddy Holly Center, which is a fantastic, arguably historical museum, and also a music celebration, which is a promotion of the arts. And that may not be the reason that they went to Lubbock, but it's one of the things they did while they were staying at an area lodging facility. So I know that Wood Creek has had a hotel tax before. I know that at a certain point, you decided not to continue it, and that there were some issues with regard to, you know, how to administer that. So if you look at doing that again, you're going to want to make sure that you have an ability to invest in items that are likely to have a positive impact on the hotel community, you know, the lodging community. And one of the ways to do that is to get a healthy involvement of lodging operators to say, where do you want the money to be spent on? Is it billboards? Is it radio? Is it TV, print ads? Is it sponsoring certain events to make them more successful? Maybe to make a 1-day event into a 3-day event. And so I would encourage you to get sort of a think tank as to what activities would have the strongest impact and how you're going to measure them. You know, you don't want to spend $10,000 to have $200 in impact. And so you want to, you know, have a good return on your investment for the hotel tax dollars that you're going to spend.
So in Wood Creek, there's only about 5 large lodging operators that will contribute to about 90% of the collected hotel tax that we know of so far. Outside of the STRs, we're talking about proper lodging places. We still don't have the information on how many STRs are operating out there in the ETJ. So would you recommend that the city sit down and meet with those 5 contributing lodging operators, or because we're only represented by 2 lodging operators that will be affected by this hot tax if it does go through. So at what point do we, if you need to have a collaborative relationship with the city and the lodging operators, at what point and how do we implement that?
Well, I would argue that at every point where it's positive, I would try to have that relationship. In other words, if they're willing to work with you, then I would reach out to them. I would try to have at least a majority of the lodging operators represented. If 90% is controlled by 5, I don't know what numbers at least represents a majority of them. And I would try to meet with all 5 and say, hey, listen, if we're going to do a hotel tax, we want to make it meaningful in terms of the uses. What type of marketing, what times of sales things? I know that some of them, you know, might say to you, well, we do better on our own. You know, we know how to market and do that stuff. The argument you can make to them is, well, if you're spending, you know, 25,000 on marketing, how would having another 50,000 on marketing not help you, especially if we're spending it in ways that you're helping to direct, that we can augment what you're already doing that you know works. That's where you can create hopefully a strong partnership. Similarly on sales incentives, if they're sponsoring events or sponsoring things that bring, you know, hotel activity, or maybe if they've never been able to, but they'd like to. I think, you know, sponsorships and marketing can be very effective ways to use the hotel tax to promote tourism and hotel activity. So I would involve them now at the planning stage. I'd involve them if you implement a hotel tax on a committee that would advise on how to spend the money. I would give them enough control in terms of, you know, some of their agenda so that you're likely to have a strong ROI. To give you an example, we have the Dallas Tourism Public Improvement District, and that's a big city, but I think the concept is the same. Our committee for the Dallas Tourism Public Improvement District, their board that oversees all these tourism PID money is all the lodging operators, it's all lodging operators on that board. And they know when their shoulder season is, they know when their height of their tourism is, and they know what's worked in the past and what hasn't. And so we find their ROI for that is so much stronger because they don't spend the money unless they find that it's a strong use. And there's not a pressure to, you have to spend it that year. They wait for a certain sort of ROI. Conversely, you have to be careful that you don't come completely from a place of no, where you just stockpile money and you don't spend anything because nobody can quite agree. So you want to get people who are going to work with you, be positive, and really come up with things that they can do, because I can guarantee you this, money sitting in a bank account is going to help nobody. But if you can all find ways to promote hotel and tourism activity, it can hopefully augment what already works and let you try to invest in things maybe that haven't been tried before. Does that help?
That's a wonderful answer. I appreciate that. And there's only two things I'm unclear about. If we are trying to fill hotel beds and we are already at 100% occupancy, we have at least 5 are during the summer times and most of the spring and fall for weddings, because 2 of them are wedding venues, and our overflow goes to the other lodgings in there. How will we again track and the accountability for filling the spaces like Monday through Wednesday during January and February? Or how are you going to jump the ROI if the ROI of the heads and beds are kind of already at capacity?
That's a great question. I'll tell you a story. South Padre Island at one point, their city council said, you know what, we're 100% full for every spring break. So we're not going to add, it's just silly for us to advertise for spring break because we fill up anyway. We're going to be on overflow. Why would we invest when we're already full? So that year that they chose not to do any marketing of South Padre for spring break, it was the first year they ended up not filling up. And then it took them, and since that point, they haven't been 100% full, with regularity since they stopped. It takes a while to kind of regain that market share. And so just because you're full doesn't mean it's not important to be top of mind. So I would encourage you to still market, for your full season, your top season, your full occupancy times, because you want to continue that. You want to retain that business. You also, by advertising, sometimes you make there a higher demand, so the rooms fill up faster and you get to that 100% quicker. And often that affects your rate. So as people have algorithms that as they fill up and they get, farther away from the date and they fill up, they raise their rates typically. And that creates more economic activity. It creates greater return for your lodging operators and for your community. And, and more hotel tax and other tax, proceeds. So I think advertising is important even when you're full. Investing is important when you're full. The other thing is that you may be advertising and you're 100% full, but you never know when there may be an economic downturn, or you never know when people are going to be considering you during other periods. And the more you expose them and the more that you market your area, you're kind of investing in your shoulder season and in your low season. And that's where I think it's important to do both. Don't just invest in your low and your shoulder season. Also invest, in what you want to retain.
Thank you for your answer.
I have a question.
Yes.
So Scott, our scenario here is that how do we promote a heart when the majority of the residents in the community have explicitly said, we don't want tourism? Okay, that's sort of what we're kind of facing here, I think. And how would you respond to that?
Well, if a majority of your city council or a majority of your population and your city council responds as such, does not want to invest in tourism or have additional tourism activity, then you shouldn't have a hotel tax. I mean, you don't want to create a tax to promote an activity you don't want. So, and you don't have to have a hotel tax. So if that's not what you want to do, then lodging operators would be on their own to promote their activity. and operate like any other business. So that's certainly, you know, a path you can take. But if you're going to have a hotel tax, you want to have a positive environment where you welcome that business activity, understanding that the taxes and revenues that a tourist pays lower the property taxes that a lot of your folks on fixed incomes or who are trying to, you know, retain their quality of life. A lot of times I'm amazed. I'll visit a community and they'll say, you know, I just hate these tourists, but they're sitting at a restaurant that would not survive if they didn't have that weekday business over the summer from tourists, or that weekend business, you know, during the height of the season from tourists. Without that, that restaurant or that attraction or that ice cream store would probably close down. So, you know, nobody wants to wait. Nobody wants to have higher prices. Nobody wants to have, you know, unwanted traffic or noise or things like that. But we all want to have the amenities of nice restaurants, nice retail, other activities that come that often wouldn't come but for the tourism that supports the, you know, a lot of restaurants can only, you know, they make, you know, a good percentage of their money from the out of towners, and that locals is just not enough to sustain them, to sustain staff, to pay their staff, to make enough revenue to keep their doors open.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And you're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm sorry about that. This guy
It's all good.
is a mess. All right, so don't want to take any more of your time, Scott. I know you're probably going to run up to the hill. So
I have one question.
hold it.
Okay.
There is a couple bills, I believe they're from the Marfa area, about using hotel occupancy tax for
For
infrastructure.
infrastructure. Mm-hmm.
Do you see that going through or gaining any traction?
We oppose those bills. There's a provision in the hotel tax law that says the local hotel tax cannot be used for infrastructure. And we feel like that's important because hotels, lodging operators already pay a lot of property tax, and we pay sales tax, we generate other taxes. And those are all available to use for infrastructure. We feel like it's double dipping to then say the dedicated tax is supposed to only be used to promote hotel activity. Then it'll start paying for water and sewer in addition to the property tax we pay. So we are opposing those. We've successfully killed those bills in the past, but you know, you never know at the legislature, but I would not bank on having that authority. I don't see that as likely.
All right, any other questions? Scott,
Did I
thank you so
cover
much.
enough on the hotel tax to help you to make a decision as to what you want to do? Because I'm happy to cover more if you'd like.
I think we're good.
I think we're good, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me give you my cell phone. If any of y'all have a question and I can provide any additional information. My cell phone is 512-565-5292. And I'll look forward to helping you. And whatever decision you make, we're glad to support you.
Thank you for the
very much.
generosity of your time, sir.
Well, you're most welcome, and I apologize for the confusion at the start. I had speech number 2 all arranged for speech number 1.
No worries. No
Wait
worries.
till Rockport hears their version.
I'm going to make them hear your speech just to punish them. All right, take care, y'all.
Thanks.
Thanks,
All right,
man.
thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Right.
Back to our agenda. So, you wanna do minutes? Purple?
I move that we approve the minutes from last meeting.
Did you take a look?
Yes, I actually did, yeah.
Super.
Mm.
Do I have a second?
I would just like to say for the record from our last meeting, because I don't feel like it was streaming, that when we asked if the city council will enact committee recommendations as recommended and without modification, we were not guaranteed that that would happen, that the city council could vote against our recommendation, which again, I think implies that we are all here on the committee using our time to pontificate this proposal. And like I said, it's already been said before, we know the answer is that the city council can change or not go with our recommendation. I wanted to have that on the record, just knowing that the last one wasn't streaming. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
All right, second on the minutes.
Is there a way to accept the minutes with the change?
Oh, sorry. I moved to,
Is that a change?
Do you want to make an amendment to the minutes to add that, or you just want to make sure that any?
Or does that apply to the minutes for this,
Is it a part of the minute?
for this meeting or the previous?
I think it was just a statement. I don't think we need to add that to the minutes.
thank you.
Okay. Seconded by Mike. Okay, so we need a roll call through the minutes. Pardon?
Ready to roll call in a minute?
Sure.
We co-chair Thomas Tom,
Yes.
member Lindsay Hasty,
Present.
member Mike Wood,
Yes.
and chairperson Ann Tyler Henry. Thank you.
Okay. So we are ready for a report from our liaison and city manager.
So, nothing really to report from the council side. I filled them in on the first meeting, at the last council meeting. And we're just sort of moving forward with, y'all's work. And I guess the only thing I really did was just contact Scott to see if he could join us
I
and,
think he was great on.
yeah, and so basically we're just moving right along.
I am getting, texts from other lodging operators that we're not streaming right now. So I just want to say that out loud before it gets to be a problem. That's what they're saying. I've got 2 people trying to watch this.
Well, we have to have been streaming or Scott wasn't in there.
So he's coming into our, I don't know how that works. but-
Yeah, I mean, he came into the Zoom, I mean, if you have to use you would have to use the Zoom information on the front of the agenda.
I saw that, yeah, on the agenda.
Cause I'm streaming, I mean, I'm actually on the Zoom meeting. So it is streaming.
Okay.
I don't see any other participants. Make sure to use the Adobe link and not the one on the HTML, because Unicode hasn't fixed that.
Thank you for that. Okay.
Kevin?
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Super. So we move on to new business. We've already talked to Scott. We are now at the point of reviewing our citywide survey questions, which Suzanne, everything checked out. Kevin did. Yes. That's good. So there was a survey that was put out. We had a total of 337 responses. And it looks like 58.46% were a no on the question of should the city raise the hotel occupancy tax to promote tourism and support local businesses in the area. Funds collected under this tax are restricted for certain purposes. We have 41.54% yes and 58.46% no.
Were these all individual households, or could this have been for multiple people in one household?
Multiple people.
The survey was sent, in paper forms at each household.
Okay.
And then a link was provided, for online entry. That was, we did pull some of the online out because it was clear that somebody got a bot in and was skewing the results. They all came from the same IP address within a few minutes of each other, so
Or
not,
seconds.
yeah, so 113.
113 were thrown out.
Yeah, so 113 were removed from the final results, based on that.
Yeah. So it seems like an accurate
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
from this.
Yeah, I mean, we got, I mean, and there's a lot of other questions. This has not gone through city council yet, so we haven't shared all of the results with everybody yet. But for the purposes of the, hotel occupancy tax committee, this is the first question on the survey. So it was easy to just sort of take that on. So if you want to know anything about any of the other questions, that might be related, I can share that, because I do have a copy of the final report.
So I was just curious to know if this was individual households or just could be multiple people.
Yeah, we asked that, we asked,
Anybody over the age of 18?
yeah,
Yes,
18.
okay.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Which I think maybe before you walked in, they said there was 902 homes, which if you multiply that by two adults typically, 1,800 people can possibly fill out the survey,
Right.
over the age of 18.
And then there's the comments. I mean, there are some comments that maybe some people didn't understand the question or thought they were being taxed, but for the most part, the comments are,
Yeah,
they understand it and they don't want the hot tax.
yeah.
Yes, but
I mean, majority is clear, but majority doesn't want it. But if you look at all the comments, which I did, there are only like 2 or 3 who say, yeah, we want the hot. All of the other comments are very strongly against it. So, and if you look at the other question is, how important is this issue for you guys? I think it came in at 2.7 average, means people are not really too interested in this issue in the first place, okay? But the ones who are interested, who said either yes or no, it seems like if I'm really committed or interested in a question, I probably would add a comment, okay, as opposed to just saying yes, no, and move on. So I would put a lot of weight on the fact that, 95% of the comment are very much against any hotel tax. Thank you.
yeah, I think it's clear. So I guess the next, agenda item is to discuss and take action. I mean, I think we know where you stand. I think we know where Shirley stood, last week. I don't know if there's room.
Is it a
for-
workshop or is it discussion? I don't know.
No.
No, we're not at workshop yet.
Yeah, we're gonna go.
Number 4, discuss and take possible action on the continuation of the hotel occupancy tax advisory committee baseline survey results.
Only on the servers, but we shouldn't comment about Scott's presentation at this point in time.
That's
Okay, okay. I'll hold back the comments about that.
Would you like to comment?
But what Scott said, yeah, I would like to, but if that's not part of number 3, we can do it under number.
Well, I thought Scott basically answered this question directly.
I mean, okay, so, when I asked my one question, I wasn't expecting one. And I haven't written down either, so. But anyhow, what he was talking about was Wimberley. The tourists come in to help support the existing restaurants and retail. Well, that's, as far as I know, Woodbury doesn't have too many of those, okay? And, what if, so looking at the survey results, I asked, what if the majority of the citizens in the community are against the heart? His answer was super clear. Don't do it. Unless the city council will go against the majority of the community residents and ignore input. So that made me very convinced about what my opinion is about this.
So my opinion, if we can give an opinion in this
Absolutely.
situation. My opinion is the same. I think that right now, and this survey result tells us that the citizens right now don't want to increase tourism, they don't want more traffic, they don't want more events, they don't want us to promote additional lodging people or events at the golf course. So if that's the case, then I'd say for now, I would vote to keep it at 0. I have thought about this. I don't think I would advocate trying to remove it from the statute because I think that is a complex process, as I understand, and you can speak to that more than I can, but we don't know yet what Wimberley's gonna do with their hotel tax, and it could be in the future that there's opportunities that we piggyback off of something they're doing. It could be website, it could be maps, it could be shuttle system that would be awesome to have for both the residents and the people that are at hotels, but we don't know yet what they're gonna do with that. We also don't know about the demographics of Wood Creek are changing. I mean, that's a rapidly changing situation as well. And third, I suppose we don't really know what the legislature is going to decide. Could be that they expand the usage to include, for example, roads, but it didn't sound like it. It's not happening this go round. So I wouldn't, yeah, so I would vote we leave it. I know that you'd rather see it go away for good, but let's change.
I'm amenable to that. I get where you're going with that, and I'm not anti-progress. I am just, at this point in
Right
time,
now, it doesn't matter.
I would love not to have to do this again, but if we have a committee like this, who we can talk amongst ourselves. You obviously know somewhat my opinion is, but I've already been through this. I'm not aggressive. I am amenable. I want to collaborate. I don't want to collaborate outside of this. If anything, this could make us better neighbors. We know what we want. We know what our citizens want. We know what my patrons want, or how it may affect Wood Creek. I get it. Like, if we're the reason people are blowing down this drive, I understand that. So, I tell my staff every day, make sure you're driving slowly. We want to make sure we're setting an example. So anyways, this was a rolled out effort to say, I would be happy to not bring that up in this round. If it becomes something problematic in the future where I would want to crush it out and we have a different council that's not cooperating, well, yeah, sure, that changes my mood too, but I feel like we're good right now.
And I mean, the ETJ, we don't know what's gonna happen in the next 5 or 10 years at the ETJ, so.
We could have a Marriott on the corner.
Sure, so I mean, as I said,
We don't know about Jacob's Well or what they might do. There was some discussion about.
so I think what you were suggesting is appropriate at this point.
Yes, okay, so, if that's the case, then we make a motion? What's our preliminary
Yeah, you would have to
procedure?
take the action, and you can do a number of things. You can just say, hey, we vote to recommend to the city council that nothing happens, nothing changes. You can vote to just suspend the committee for a period of time and come back and look at it at another time and just do nothing. You can, it's whatever you think is the best course of action to get the message from this committee to the council, for whatever, if any, action on it. And then looking, down the road, do you want to be able to pull the group back together for further discussion in 6 months or a year? So rather than forming another committee, you just say we
Right.
just suspend operations for it. So that's kind of right, Kevin? Is that
Yes.
basically the choices?
So is Wood Creek actively promoting tourism in any fashion with tax funds from other?
No, not at this time.
And so the primary tax base is property tax and.
Property tax,
And then the sales tax.
and then we'll just hook on the y'all's websites.
If I could, you can do whatever you want, you can like, hey, we're not gonna meet, or whatever. I think it would be wise to send a recommendation and a report to city council, just so it's on record, that y'all came up with a conclusion, whatever that may be. And we would provide, and I would help you write a report to city council describing your decision and how you came to that decision.
Mhm.
That way there's some record of, some background there, rather than just saying hotel occupancy tax committee came back and they're not recommending the HOT. Maybe give them a little bit more meat on there, showing your due diligence and what you've done. That way there is 5 years from now, when it's revisited, we have something on record of what you did, what you went through, and what you presented to council.
Should that be part of the motion?
No, it doesn't have to be. You can, as the body, just recommend, or do, let's say you recommend not to do it. I would get with the chairperson and we would sit down and we would write the report. I would help her write the report, just kind of showing her how or whatever, and then that would be presented to, city council.
Is there any mechanism by which we share it with our group again, or would we have to meet to share?
No, you wouldn't have to, because basically, you just write the summary of, I think everybody.
You can draft it and share it.
Yeah, you can draft it and share it if you want,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
I would just like to have some.
I think 6 months is too soon. I would say at least a year, because I think we'll
I
know
would say
more,
longer, but
maybe 2 years. We'll know more about what Wimberley's up to. We'll know more about legislative changes that might be coming down the pipeline, and I think 6 months just seems like we're back.
No, that's just-
Yeah, that's just, it's kind of like taking out the first part of each year, you know, to meet or.
yeah, for me to be considered, has something changed or not? I mean, I suppose to be no, but at least for the next couple of years, you know.
I'd be curious, Lance, what are the 5 lodges? I mean, I'm new to the area, just for my curiosity, I know it's the lodge, I know it's Messina
Messina
Inn.
Inn, there's Cypress Creek Cottages, there's, what is it, it's the Homestead Cottages, which are under something else, right?
It's actually, do you want to say how many, you had the figures, I think. We were going to talk about this in workshop if we were moving forward.
No, there's
Maybe
33, there's currently 33 lodging facilities in the ETJ.
Or SDR, or.
STR and lodging facilities.
So
Everybody
Eagles
that
Nest,
is-
maybe,
Yeah, Eagles Nest, yes. Everybody that pays the state, pays 6%.
right,
There's 33 of those in the ETJ. There are none in the city.
I would still love to have that information so that I can at least, have a benchmark of where we're leaving
How
off.
much money.
And then where we're going in the future, that would, to be in the dark about this, if we do have those numbers, is, to me, it's thwarting to our efforts, and, it's a lot of assuming, which doesn't really come from a very good base of, rather based my information, or my opinions on data.
Well,
Is there
we
any
can-
reason
we
why
can-
we can't share that?
I know, I get it from the
Controller, right?
comptroller, but it's not on their website, correct?
Yeah, they used to post it on the website,
Correct.
and they took it down, and now you have to go through Freedom of Information Act to get it, but it's public now.
I can't just call my
Public information.
stuff there.
Yeah, you certainly can. So you know, what we can do as part of that report, that goes to council, just include that, just include the list, and then everybody has that.
Yeah, with the hotel occupancy tax, we'd probably bring in, do you remember it was, $1,200 a month.
Per percentage, per percent,
Per percent.
yeah.
How many total
Yeah,
rentals?
it
are
was
we
One,
now?
2, 3,
It was
4,
like-
5.
It was like 100,000, like just
Yeah,
under 100,000.
So 1,250
A
times
year.
6 times 12.
Yeah, correct.
And last time
So-
we collected 90,000 over 5 years,
Yeah.
but that wasn't.
They
A
were
lot more
collecting,
money than you would think.
before when it was
Because
implemented
these
back
are
in 13 and 14,
Last
the
year.
city
Yeah.
brought in about 30 to 40,000.
Of what? The
30,
last.
yeah, back in.
Back at the
13.
tail end of those top ones.
I think.
That figure was also assuming
That's
the maximum percentage minus it like at 7%, minus 1%.
No, back then they didn't have.
No, I mean, the figure I just said, the
Correct.
close to 100,000 was assuming the full 7%.
Now the
minus
7.43.
Right, and it's possible that in 2 years we go, hey, look what Wimberley's doing, that's awesome, we wanna piggyback on that, but we really only need about 2% of our total amount to participate in that, and so that's all we need to charge. I mean, it doesn't have to be, as Jeff said from the beginning, it doesn't have to be 7%. It could be a smaller amount, but
I just would like to
be.
But I think what's the question
Give it
here
some time.
about, where does the money come from this, here in the ETJ? And I think it's fair to say, without remembering exactly the numbers, that probably 90% plus comes from the top 5 multi-unit things. So, I mean, and as far as I can tell and have heard, all those 5 are proposing a 0 tax because they don't see any benefit to them to increase their heads in beds. So, I mean, not only do we have survey results from the community's residents, we have the lodging industry, the big players, by saying we are better off on our own. Okay, so that's another reason I think to just move along and make a motion now. Can I make a motion?
Yeah.
Which can be added to, because I'm not very good at making proper motions, but I then move that the committee recommends to city council that we continue to maintain a 0 part based on surveying the citizens, listening to their comments, listening to the comments from the lodging group, and recognizing that Wood Creek has very few, if any, amenities to interest additional tourism. The only thing we have is what you have, but, you know, we don't have a restaurant. We don't have much of anything. I mean, this is a residential. Okay, this is too long.
Wonderful.
And I will recommend that we, on an annual basis, revisit the situation, the same committee on an annual basis. I don't know which is appropriate time of the year, but I mean, annually, March, annually. If something has changed in the general environment.
We would leave that to the chair and co-chair to set those meetings.
Okay.
Okay.
So not to review, but just to meet, or
Well,
not to,
like
not
what he
to, yeah.
I'm sorry, like what Scott was saying, you know, well, let's have a workshop with all the lodging owners. Let's invite all 33 in, sit in the room and talk about, you know, what everybody feels. I mean, if you wanted to do that, you could.
Once a year.
But if there's no committee, you know, we can't do that. Right.
Now, I would say we would keep the committee together if we are going to propose to keep this as an ordinance.
Then keep this in committee.
To keep it, I don't want to reinvent the wheel every year. This is a time suck for, I think, everybody, and, but I feel like we've got a good, I mean, are we allowed to add any numbers? That's, I mean, can
Can we vote on this?
yes.
And then the.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have to reread it just because there's a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's the middle portion cut out because it's.
Yeah.
So it says, that your motion was the committee recommend the city council to continue to maintain a 0% hot tax based on the citizen survey and comments, and recommends that on an annual basis to revisit the situation and see if the environment has changed.
We forgot to think about the lodging community also.
Where do you want that?
The comment from the.
After comments.
Oh, okay, and lodging.
Also,
From the lodging.
More comments from the community.
Okay, and then,
I mean, just-
Like a second.
event discussion.
Right.
yes. And as such, we do not need to move forward to the workshop.
Correct.
Correct. Okay,
Which would help it.
I will let the weather future, right, 7:4. I think it's pretty to be late.
I'm sorry, we don't need it to vote.
So to vote on that one?
Just real, let's tell her what she's voting on since she's here. The motion on the floor is to maintain.
You may want to check her in as being present.
I did, 11:03.
But she was late.
Yes,
She
11:03.
was 7 minutes late last time.
I'm not
Yeah.
good with.
There's a motion on the floor,
Uh-huh.
and seconded, we're about to take a vote on basically keeping things the way they are.
Okay.
0%.
Keep it at 0. And based on the survey results and comments from the lodging community and this general comments, and that, basically the committee would stay intact, and meet annually to review.
Okay.
Is that's
Yeah,
the
that
essence of it?
Do you want to read it one more time, or we're good? We've already had a second.
Yeah.
So
Moved
now
by
we move to
Samad,
vote
seconded by-
on our new motion.
Maybe erase the line through
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the person was, a majority. And we felt like that was a good example.
Do you have any questions for us before we vote?
Okay.
Did we add to be revisited annually?
Yes.
You wanted to change the one.
At the discretion of chairman.
Let's,
Right, and we will need,
Do you want to add that at the end?
we already have this vacancy.
Sure.
With it.
you think March annually? Do you need that? for the
If you want to set a time.
one.
Well, just a
Honor
reminder,
markers.
there's always gonna be, yeah, and probably
Tuesday
Tuesday.
first. At the beginning of March.
Yeah, because there's gonna be prep for spring break for all of our facilities, right? And then we actually might be going on spring break with our kids, so.
What if we say end of February? Or beginning of April? Which would be
I
better?
mean. I think I think the end of February would be better for.
Okay,
How about the first quarter this year?
first quarter.
I love that.
Okay.
And then I have one more thing, how about, at the discretion of a chairwoman and or city council?
Well, yeah, I think the council could ask you to,
Not even without
yeah,
mentioning that.
you know, it's still at your discretion. You know, each of our committees is
just
not
say-
part of this body,
Let's just say
The
first
chairperson.
quarter.
first word.
First quarter chairperson.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we need to expand our scope.
Okay.
Okay. Okay,
Community game now since we,
Yeah, and since technically the chairperson didn't repeat your motion, you don't have to have an amendment, so I'm trying to figure out where to squish the quarter in here. So you said,
very last comment, after the comments from the lodging, there will be, and these issues will be reviewed annually in the first quarter at the discretion or under the chairperson, at the initiative discretion of the chairperson. I'm not sure what the word is.
yeah,
Yeah,
just let
well,
me know if you want to meet. Otherwise, we'll meet once quarter,
No.
once a year. And
Only so we think it's necessary.
I see.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Okay, I see.
You
Okay.
get.
That's the law.
Feeling.
Okay,
so at discretion of chair and council?
That's chair.
Chair.
just chair.
Chair,
Council can call whatever they want.
okay, all right.
Unnecessary. Okay,
Okay, so member Lindsay Hasty,
Yes, ma'am.
okay,
you're
Yes,
voting yes.
yes.
yeah.
Aye.
Member Sherry Maley. Aye. Member Mike Wimmer,
I,
chairperson Ann Tyler Conrady,
Aye.
co-chair Thomas Bond.
Thank you. Okay. So in light of that decision, I move that we do not do number 5 on the agenda, the workshop discussion, and we move to announcements. I don't have any announcements. And so we can adjourn.
The next year.
Move to adjourn.
And thank you all.
Thank you, guys. Yes.
Thanks for your time, everyone.
I have an update on how we're on that number. You can manage.
Yeah, so we will have to replace Laura. Right, we need 7, so we
You
need.
thought it was at 11?
We need one
Like-
more.